On May 10th, Robert Iger was taking a nap reading scripted portions of prepared statements for the Walt Disney Company earnings call. During the Q&A portion, one of the institutional investors asked a question about Reedy Creek and Ron DeSantis. At this point, Robert Iger woke up and went kooky dukes for the second call in a row.
Renegade Online.
Regarding Florida, I got a few things I want to say.
Here we go.
About that bill.
Step in it, Bob. Do it
The
again.
case that we filed last month made our position and the facts very clear, and that's really that this is about one thing and one thing only, and that's retaliating against us for taking a position about pending legislation.
Please go further. Please.
And we believe that in us taking that position, we are merely exercising our right to free speech.
Sure.
Also, this is not about
You
special
aren't
privileges
Reedy
or
Creek.
a level playing field or Disney in any way using its leverage around the state of Florida. But since there's been a lot said about special districts and the arrangement that we had, I want
Talk
to set
directly
the record
to us,
straight.
Bob.
Wait,
We know
wait.
you're talking to
There
us.
are about 2,000 special districts in Florida,
Uh-huh.
But
and most
none
were
like
established
you.
to foster investment and development, where we were one of them.
No,
It
you
basically
weren't.
made it
No,
easier
you
for
were
us
not.
and others, by the way, to do business in
So
Florida.
bad.
And we built a business that employs, as we've said before, over 75,000 people and attracts tens of millions of people to the state.
Look at Mike.
So while it's easy to
But
say
you're
that
not
the Reedy
the
Creek
biggest
Special
employer
District that
in
was
the
established
state. That
for us
would
over
be
50 years
Publix,
ago
thank you very
benefited
much.
us,
Which
it's
is owned by
misleading
its
to not
employees,
also
actually.
consider how much Disney benefited the state of Florida. And we're not the only company operating a special district. I mentioned 2,000.
Oh, my
The-
gosh. Oh, my gosh.
It has
Here
one
we
sort
go.
My
of
goodness,
the
shut up,
Villages,
Bob.
which is a prominent retirement community, and there are countless others.
The Villages?
So the goal here
That's
is
comparable?
leveling the playing. If the goal is leveling the playing field, then a uniform application of the law of or government oversight of special districts needs to occur or be applied to all special
That's
districts.
what they
It did.
did.
There's
They
also
wrote
a
it that
false
way.
narrative that we've been
He
fighting
screwed
to
Wasn't a
himself.
protect
problem
tax breaks
until it
as part
happened
of
to
this.
you,
But in
right?
fact, we're the largest taxpayer in Central Florida, paying over
At this point, it's sad.
$1.1 billion
Central.
in local
I'm going to hit
taxes.
this
Central.
hard when this is
Well,
over. I'm going to hit this
and pay more
hard when this is
taxes,
over. Stay
specifically more
tuned.
real estate
That was
as a result
bullshit
of
right
that
there,
special
pardon my
district.
French.
And we all know there was no concerted effort to do anything to dismantle what was
And they
once
fight
called
the
Reedy
tax
Creek Special
assessment every
District
year.
until we spoke out on the legislation.
Yeah,
So this
well,
is plainly a matter of retaliation, while the rest of the Florida special districts continue operating basically as they were.
I'm sorry. Pardon my French. That was all bull.
I think
I'm
it's
going
also
to tear
important
that
for us
apart
to say
in a minute.
Our primary
Totally
goal has
was.
always been to be able to continue to do exactly what we've been doing there, which is investing in Florida. We're proud of the
And he
tourism
hasn't
industry
talked
that
to
we
Ron
created,
DeSantis
and we
yet.
want to continue delivering the best possible experience for guests
Let you know
going forward.
if an
We never
analyst is
wanted,
watching
or-
this
and
and
we
on the
certainly never
line, ask him
expected
about the
to be in the
bonds.
position of having to defend our business interests
Please
in
do.
federal court, particularly having such a terrific relationship.
Florida's
with the
never
state
gonna
needs to
do
shut the
that,
f up
for more
now.
than 50
Is he going
years.
to talk about the counter
And as I
suit?
mentioned on our
In state
shareholder
court?
call, we have a huge
Wait,
opportunity
let's see.
to continue to invest in Florida. I noted
He's still
that
going
our
about it.
plans
Let's
are
just
to
let him
invest
talk.
$17 billion over the next 10 years, which is what the state should want us to do. We operate responsibly. We pay our fair share of taxes. We employ thousands of people. And by the way, we pay them above the minimum wage, substantially above the minimum wage dictated
But they can't afford
by
to
the
live
state of
there.
Florida. And we also provide them with great benefits.
That
and
has
free
nothing to
education.
do
So
with
I'm gonna
special
Like the
finish
taxing
this
mutilation
district
of their
laws.
children.
And
kind of a
cast
long
members
answer
living
by
in
asking
hotels.
one question. Does the
You don't
state
talk
want us
about
to
that, do
invest
you?
more,
Wait,
employ more people,
listen.
and pay more taxes, or not? Thanks.
that was a threat.
You're
Wow.
firing people.
That was a threat.
Question, please.
Well, Bob,
I
take your
can't-
tax
I can't-
money and go to South
Question
Carolina.
From Michael Nathan.
I can't express how much damage he just did to Disney
Please go
additionally.
ahead.
God.
But we'll tell it in a moment.
I'm in shock.
Oh, I did not think this was going to turn into the poop show that was the annual stockholder meeting last month. I thought this was
Deja
going
vu
to
all
be.
over again.
I really thought, like, I knew that annual stockholder meeting was going to get a little bit more spicy because there's more generally that happens during those in terms of what we talk about here on our channels on YouTube. I did not expect Bob Iger to just go into a riff on Reedy Creek like that during the Q&A. I thought, if anything, that maybe Mr. Gutierrez would have scripted him something to address very, very calmly, with a lot of legalese and being deft about it and diplomatic. But
yeah, like first 15 minutes, Bob.
Yeah, but because all that is scripted. But I did not expect to have, when we got the Q&A, where he just went stupid.
It's mind-boggling. He's playing loosey-goosey with something that is billions and billions and billions of dollars. Like, he doesn't do this with the things that would cost them a few million. He's more careful with that kind of stuff.
Two things. One is I'm in shock that this is now our second time that he's basically interacted with the public that are investors. This is the second time in a row he's breached it, and he's not backing down at all. He used the word "we" in relating to a municipal district. Hello?
A lot of conflation.
That is piercing the veil. And, the other thing he did that I found baffling to me is how he says he wants to be treated equally. Well, this is a company that got preferential treatment forever. And the fact that he's trying to equate himself that somehow they were discriminated against in some odd way, as opposed to other places that are in districts around, is just baffling to me.
Do you think he's getting bad information? Because this is monumentally bad.
Absolutely has the wrong counsel. He is getting, and the fact that these guys want to, if I'm CEO of a company and I have billions and tens of billions, possibly hundreds of billions, arguably, possibly even $1 trillion in value that I am putting at risk, and I'm going to put it all at risk because I want to, quote, have my company be free speechy about what acts that kids can learn about between K and the third grade. Mm-hmm. Anybody out there that defends this company and looks at what this company's done, that it is financially that stock price right now is at the same dollar amount that it was when Chapek got escorted out the door the night of the Elton John concert. And we are
not giving anyone financial advice at this moment.
I'm merely making an observation that nothing has changed under the current leadership, and he's had 6 months to do it. Nothing has changed. That is my statistical, factual observation. And I think that and I also heard his voice. When that question got asked, he went from neutral, reading script, innocuous answering question, to I think Valiant picked up on something. That really bothered him getting asked that question.
When it came time for the biggest question out there regarding Florida and a situation where the Walt Disney Company has tens of billions, if not hundreds of billions, if not $1 trillion over the next century of issues at their doorstep, Robert Iger made one of the biggest mistakes I have ever heard out of any CEO. Whereas we may have thought previously that he would have been corrected by his legal advisors, this time, he went out and directly, explicitly stated that the Walt Disney Company and Reedy Creek Improvement District were one and the same. And that means that his company was issuing bonds, municipal bonds.
Government bonds.
It's the craziest thing you've ever heard in any report out of any company that I can recall. I can't even imagine the cleanup that now has to occur. The amount of money that was burned away by that. Whereas previously we may have concluded that the state of Florida might avoid this. Bob Iger is now putting it to the Florida investigators to say, here, I will just tell you I'm doing this. Are you going to call us on it? And of course, there's a lot to be weighed on what would happen should that occur. But this was just a shellacking. And you can see it if you go look at other places where, don't leave now, don't leave. But if you go look in other tabs at other places where they're tracking the results, again, we're not giving financial advice, but we're not here to be overly critical. We're not here to be salacious. We're not here to be bombastic. But this was an absolute shellacking of the company in every way possible. We now have to begin truly questioning, how big is the boycott? It's not, is there a boycott? It's not, is there a backlash? It's how big is this thing and how long will it last?
No, I don't think a lot of the analysts out there especially the ones on the call and whatnot, I don't know if they quite understand the ramifications of this whole issue in Florida. I think a lot of them are, let's be honest, they're kind of dumb when it comes to this stuff. Yeah. I hate to say that. I mean, remember, these are the same analysts that for years wanted to see nothing but sub-growth for streaming services. When people like me were screaming that, but they're not making any money. They're just losing money. What about, wouldn't it be more important to find out when they're going to be profitable? Then a year ago, all of a sudden, all the analysts were like, maybe these things need to make money. Oh, welcome aboard. Welcome to the real world. The same thing's going to happen here. They're going to catch up. And I'm not trying to sit here toot my own horn, but I don't look at things in the same bubble. It's like the Hollywood bubble. This is the Wall Street analyst bubble, right? Where you have this group think, this monolithic, very, terrible amount of tunnel vision out there with how they perceive how things are operating. And I don't think they see yet, but they are eventually going to come around to the fact that Disney is not going to win this fight against Florida. They're just not. And it's going to cost them significantly more than what they have up to this point to operate that park. And that means Disney can do one of two things. They can either absorb those expenses themselves from their operating income at present, or they can raise prices across the board at Disney parks and experience, which they already have to a large degree. But part of that has been to the fact that Disney thinks that, again, their parks and experiences are, to a degree, completely elastic, which we covered in a video, price elasticity. I think they're reaching a point where they're going to find out that they're not. They're more inelastic than they're thinking, and I think that's going to accelerate tremendously. Think about this. By the time these court cases are settled, and it's very possible that they could go on for the next year or two with appeals processes and things like this, right about the time they settle, and we find out certainly definitively that they have no standing in this, and there's nothing that the federal court can do for them. That's right about the time that Epic Universe is going to open.
Yes. And I drive by there so many times. It's so exciting seeing all that.
That Super Nintendo Land that's going, or Super Nintendo World that's going to open there, it is impressive. It is huge.
It's massive. It's big.
Bigger. It's bigger than the two parks that exist there. And to kind of add a little bit more color, where Epic Universe is, it is across the street from the Orange County Convention Center.
Yeah.
It's huge district with
now, guys, I've got a message.
Hotels. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You did?
I've got a message from Drunk 3PO regarding the domestic parks. Apparently, the domestic parks were down. I don't know if we covered this sufficiently, but apparently the domestic parks are actually down as a result of a decrease in Walt Disney World resort attendance that was slightly offset by Disneyland Resort. This coming from Scott Guston, who is a frequent blogger of Disney parks.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were positive about the theme parks, but perhaps we were a bit quick to draw that conclusion as people are getting into the higher resolution thinking about this and looking at the language that's in the report. It turns out that Disney World is down itself, that being the crown jewel of everything the Walt Disney Company has. Disneyland came up a bit and helped offset that, hide it a little. But if Disney World is now beginning to go down, note this would be very important. Disney World itself is so vastly so large compared to Disneyland and everything else. And Disney World has been the impervious place that has been completely invulnerable to Disney's mistakes. People just go there no matter what. If it starts to drop, that would be truly that would be the big one. That would indicate. Yeah. So all this other stuff is sort of like, really bad issues for the company. But if Disney World itself is pulled out, that's the foundation of the company's revenue.